Good morning, History 512, and thank you for taking the time to view this video. Today I want to talk about Jane McCrea, who's kind of a forgotten figure in the history of the American Revolution. Unlike people such as Betsy Ross or Molly Pitcher, her story has been forgotten, I think primarily because she's a known loyalist, and it doesn't really flow with the modern sensibilities of especially post 1950, of the ideas of Native Americans being these pure nature dwelling people who would never murder and scalp an innocent young woman. So the history of her is very interesting, especially because we're not quite sure how she passed away. The Native Americans claim that she was killed by an errant bullet fired by the Patriot militia. Patriots obviously claim she was taken out to the woods, butchered, and murdered. The only people that probably know are the ones who were involved in the incident, and sadly that knowledge is lost to history. But what isn't lost to history is the effect she had on the Saratoga campaign and the American Revolution in general. Obviously, as students in this class, we all know the importance of the Saratoga campaign as the turning point of the war, and the one campaign that would finally convince the French to join us in the war against the British. So her influence is really surrounds the circumstances of her passing away and the propaganda effect that her death had on the conflict. So one of the best pieces of propaganda was an excerpt from a letter written by General Gates to General Burgoyne that unfortunately I believe is held by the New York Institute that has General Gates's letters on file, but unfortunately they have not reprinted them or reproduced them in any way other than microfilm. So I was able to find this via a secondary source, Christopher Ward's The War of the Revolution. But this is a letter that General Gates wrote to General Burgoyne that was then reproduced in newspapers of the time period and helped rally the militia to cut off Burgoyne's forces and reduce their ability to forage and supply his army as they worked their way down through upstate New York, north of Albany. So here's a quote after General Burgoyne sent a letter complaining about the treatment of the captives from the Battle of Bennington. This is Horatio Gates' response: that the savages of America should in their warfare mangle and scalp the unhappy prisoners who fall into their hands is neither new nor extraordinary, but that the famous Lieutenant General Burgoyne, in whom the fine general is united with the soldier and the scholar, should hire savages of America to scalp Europeans and the descendants of Europeans, nay more, that he should pay the price for each scalp so barbarously taken, is more than will be believed in England. Miss McCrea, a young lady lovely into the sight, of virtuous character and amiable disposition, engaged to be married of an officer of your army, was carried into the woods and there scalped and mangled in the most shocking manner. So this is just a hint of the propaganda value that General Gates obviously saw in this incident. Obviously, even people of the time period know that she was a loyalist and find it kind of ironic that the Patriots were able to use her death so effectively. The other big issue that surrounded the death of General Jane McCrea was the fact that Burgoyne tried to arrest the perpetrators, but was told by his advisors that if he actually did so, he would lose all of his Native American allies. So General Burgoyne chose to allow the perpetrators to go free and tried to sweep the incident under the rug. Obviously, this did not work out so well for him, and many of his Native American allies ended up fleeing and not helping him in his campaign as it wound through the end of the campaign when he was finally surrounded and captured. The Native Americans then paid for this issue when General Washington launched his campaign against the Iroquois within the next year. That campaign burned down multiple Iroquois villages all through central New York and pushed the Iroquois nation all the way back to Fort Niagara. Now, I find this series of events incredibly interesting, and the fact that it surrounds a woman who's pretty much been in many ways lost to history other than people who study the American Revolution in detail is probably the most interesting fact about it. Thank you for your time and have a great day.